Welcome to this week's Brittany's Bites. This week we're making a pretty simple weeknight dinner. You could also make it on the weekend as well, and it really can serve a crowd, especially if you're going to do it as more of a side dish, but it also can serve as your main meal as well. We're going to do a little twist on what typically is a dish with some Italian flavors, stuffed peppers. Often you'll have some marinara sauce with that, the mozzarella cheese on top, but we are going to do it with a little bit of a Mexican twist. We're going to make chorizo stuffed peppers. This really brings the flavor and the spice. I like it so much better than the original version, so really excited to make it. Of course, it begins with the peppers, the main star of the dish, and easy enough to buy those in the store where you get that 3-pack of the red, yellow, and orange peppers. And then I just took the time to take off the tops and sort of carve out some of the ribs there so you have nice little boats to hold all of the goodness that's going to go into it. So I have the oven preheating to 350 degrees. I'm going to pop these in, and really we want to bake them a little bit to soften them up before we stuff them and put them back in the oven. So I'm going to put them in the oven for about 15 minutes. And while I'm doing that and while they're baking, that's when you move on to all of the ingredients you're going to put inside of it. So I'll pop this in the oven and we'll come back and get started. Now it is time to get to the stuffed part of our stuffed peppers, our chorizo stuffed peppers. And speaking of that, I have some chorizo going in the pan right now. You can use about a pound of it. Now, if you don't want to use chorizo, you can absolutely switch it out for ground beef, turkey, pork, anything you'd like. But this is what I'm using today. So we've got it ready to go. So we need to start adding some other things to it. We want to build up the flavor with some onions. So I just have about 1 small onion chopped up here that I am going to put in. That's the other trick, I've talked about this before, just to keep things moving, is to prep everything ahead of time so everything's ready to go. You don't want your chorizo to be cooked and ready for the next step, and then you're over here quickly trying to chop up, I got one little one I don't like, trying to chop up the onion. And then along with that, I have my garlic ready to go. I'm gonna give this a quick stir first. I just have 2 cloves of garlic that I have minced and I'm gonna put in here. Everything, by the way, smelling so great in here and looking so good. And if you don't want to use this much onion, you can always back it down to about half an onion, but I love onion. I think it adds a lot of flavor. And we're still going to be adding some more things into this as well. So the onions won't be such a main part of this by the time it's all said and done. Okay, so we've got that stirred in a little bit. Gonna add in this garlic again that I've already crushed up. I'm gonna get every last bit of it in there. I'm just gonna let this go, not too long, especially with the garlic in there, but just a minute or two to sort of soften up the onions, get it all combined, and then we'll start adding some spices before we get the main part of it as well, that rice. Okay, everything is looking pretty great with the chorizo and the onions and the garlic. It's smelling fantastic. The onions have softened a bit, so now we're gonna add even more flavor. So to that, we're gonna add some tomato paste. This just really sort of builds up the richness of almost any dish that has a tomato paste to it. I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons. That's what I would normally add. I don't know if I have quite enough left in this, but I'm not gonna open a new one just for this. So I'm gonna use however much I have in here and then go with it. It's totally fine. I actually might have 2 tablespoons. All right, that's pretty good. Got that in. And I'm gonna stir that up quickly and get that incorporated before I add in the spice. And basically we're adding in a lot of spices that are typical for any Mexican dish, but you can switch these up with whatever you had, or really with everything else going on in here. You don't even have to add more spice. Speaking of spice though, the other thing we're gonna add at this point is a little can of diced green chilies. You probably have seen them. I picked the hot, you can pick the mild, totally fine. So we're gonna put those in. We're gonna put essentially peppers within peppers, right? And then as far as our spices go, the main spice is gonna be chili powder here. We're gonna add 2 teaspoons of that. 1, and, ooh, got a big chunk. If I can get some out. 2, big flavors there. Then we're just gonna add 1 teaspoon of cumin, probably my favorite spice that I use in so many things. I just love the flavor of it. The others, we're not gonna add quite as much. I'm just gonna do a half teaspoon of, let's start with the garlic powder. There we go. And then a half teaspoon of cayenne. Again, this is one of the spices that you do not have to add if you do not want to add it. And then coriander. Basically, every time I'm using cumin, I like to use coriander as well. Woo! There we go. And then, just for good measure, I'm going to put in some salt. Then make sure that we get this all mixed together. Great. Okay, let's get this all incorporated. Boy, we're overwhelmed with lovely flavor right now. Oh, I got a pepper stem in there. Get that out. Okay, once I get this mixed up just for a minute or two, we're gonna then add the next step, and that would be the rice. Now, sometimes I've also made this with quinoa, by the way. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but feel free to do that. Today, we're just gonna use regular old rice, and we're gonna use the normal rice, so to speak, not the quick, fast cooking rice, because we're going to cook it for a long time in broth and bring all of these flavors together. So you could probably figure out a way to do a shortcut. I guess just use the directions on the package for how you cook it and what kind of measurements you need to add as far as liquid versus the rice, but this is how I'm doing it today. I think it's mixed up pretty well, so we can move on to our next step. By the way, I'm gonna add to this beans, but I'm gonna do that later. And this is another optional ingredient that we'll talk about, but I saw it sitting here, so I wanted to mention it. First, we're gonna add in the rice here, and I have a half a cup of just regular white rice here, long grain, I believe, and it's sticking because I did what we all should do, rinse our rice, right, before we use it. So I'm gonna make sure I get it all scraped out here. But again, this is a half a cup, and we probably know it's sort of a 1 to 2 when it comes to rice versus whatever liquid you add. You can add water. In this case, we're gonna add some broth, whatever broth you have on hand. So again, half cup of rice and then 1 cup of our broth. Okay, woo, splashing it everywhere. I'm gonna get this all stirred up, and then we are going to cook it down for about 15 or 20 minutes until the rice is fully cooked, and that is when we will add in those beans and then stuff our peppers and pop it in the oven. And then it'll all be ready to go. So I'm gonna get this cooking and then we'll come back. The rice mixture has been cooking here for about 20 minutes. I think I forgot to get really specific about what we were going to do once we added the rice and the broth. We brought it to a boil, then took it down to a simmer and put a lid on it for about 20 minutes. So it's basically done now. So I want to add in the final thing here, the black beans we were talking about. And I kind of usually eyeball this. I'm going to give it a quick stir. Oh yes, all ready to be the stuffing for our peppers. And oh my goodness, it smells fantastic in here. It looks like the rice is all cooked as we want it to be. So I'm gonna eyeball, this is just 1 can of, I think 15 ounces of black beans that I have rinsed. And I'm gonna maybe do half, maybe do whole. I just kinda like to see what the portions are. I want everything to sort of be even. I think that's probably gonna do it as far as how many beans I wanna add. Great, okay, so what I'm gonna do is take this off the heat and grab the peppers. Again, we had those par baking in the oven for 15 minutes. They're now ready to be stuffed, and then we'll sprinkle some cheese on top to pop them back in the oven, and then we'll have our meal, so stand by. Now it's time to get to, I guess, the main event. We're gonna stuff those stuffed peppers. And here we have them out of the oven. They were just in there for about 15 minutes to start to get them baking and softening up just a bit. We've got our mixture of the rice and the chorizo and the beans and all those spices and those green chilies, don't forget, all ready to go. Usually I end up having too much filling, but you can kind of use it to make a burrito bowl as well. So definitely save this. But you kind of want to fill up these peppers as much as possible. Just take sort of a scoop, a couple scoops obviously, and smoosh it in there. So it'll take me just a couple of minutes to do this with every pepper, and then we're gonna sprinkle some cheese on top. So let me get these going and then we'll get to the cheese. Well, I don't know what I was talking about because all of the filling fit in here. I think I got bigger peppers than I normally get, so fantastic. It worked out perfectly. And so on top of that, we're just gonna sprinkle some cheese, your favorite kind of cheese. I just have a Mexican blend, makes sense, right? Put as much on there as you would like. And then we'll move on to our final step. Looking great. So yes, this recipe does require a few steps. It'll take you some time, that's for sure. So you may end up wanting to do this on a weekend rather than a weeknight. But hey, if you get things started as soon as you come home from work, everything will be out of the oven and good to go in just about an hour. So can't really beat that. All right, do I have lots of cheese on here? I think that probably is gonna do it. So what I'm gonna do now is just add a piece of aluminum foil on top, and then we're gonna bake it in the oven for 20 minutes, and our stuffed peppers will be ready to go. So I'm gonna put it in the oven and then we'll come back and see the finished product. The stuffed peppers are now out of the oven, smelling great. Look at all the melty cheese. Can't wait to try one. Now, they're good to go from here, but you also can jazz it up and add all sorts of toppings if you'd like. I thought I'd just do a few. Now let's see if I can scoop this out. Okay, I'll probably just go for the one in the corner. Whoa, I'm afraid to touch the pan because it's still hot. There we go. Hey, and it all stayed together. Gotta love that. So on top of this, I'm just gonna do a little dollop of sour cream. There we go. And then I just have some fresh red onions that I've diced up. I'm gonna sprinkle on top and then top it with a little fresh jalapeno. And then you can also put some hot sauce on this if you'd like, but check it out. How cool is this? Love it, it all came together perfectly. Again, you could make this a meal, have 2 of them, or use it as a side dish, whatever you'd like, but I hope you give it a try. If you would like to see the full written out recipe, you can go online right now to WBIR.com.